So welcome. Welcome to day 4 of What's the Point of Slow Yoga. Today we're going to be looking at the vagus nerve, and I'm really looking forward to doing this with you. We're going to be practicing together again for 10 minutes after your 5 minutes of fast facts, and the 10 minutes practice will be standing today. It's a bit of a shock to the system after the last few days. If you have a yoga mat, perfect. If you don't, just make sure you're standing in such a way you're not going to slip. So no socks on wooden floors, please. And if you're not a regular yoga practitioner, if you're not used to doing forward bends, you might want to have a chair. You can see I've got a chair behind me. You might want to have a chair or a piece of furniture to hand. And particularly if you're pregnant, if you have high blood pressure, you're prone to dizziness, or anything else that makes you feel that you are more comfortable with your head above heart level, in that case, just make sure you have something nearby to support you. But don't worry about all of that now. Gather whatever you need, and I invite you to sit or lie down as we prepare for this session. For those who don't know me, I'm Helen Davis from One Step Forward. I'm a yoga teacher and also a hypnotherapist, and I'm fascinated by how both yoga and hypnotherapy help us to connect and engage with our nervous system, to change the neural pathways in our brain, and to find new ways of dealing with stress and overwhelm in our lives. And so this week's short series of 15-minute sessions is just to do a very top level introduction to some of the things that are going on in our bodies, in our brains, while we are practicing yoga, and slow yoga in particular, because that's what I teach. I teach a type of yoga known as Scaravelli inspired, which is very internal. It can appear very gentle when you start doing it. When you've done it for a while, you realize how powerful it is. But if you're used to the idea of twisting your body into all sorts of shapes or jumping around, getting hot and sweaty, then it can be a bit of a shock to the system. So I just want to share why I believe this is such a good practice. So as I say, today we'll be looking at the vagus nerve, the critical role that plays in regulating our systems, and how slow yoga helps with that. You don't have to worry about remembering anything I say. In fact, you can let all my facts wash over you. Anything that is really important for you to remember, you will remember. And of course, these videos will stay up online till the end of this month, November 21, and they will then remain in my Facebook group and available to members of my subscription yoga group indefinitely. While I'm on the subject of yoga, if anyone watching is local to me, I have a space in my forthcoming in-person half-day workshop this coming Saturday, just on the Hampshire-West Sussex border. So have a look at the events on my page if you're interested in finding out more than that. I'd love to see you there. So as I say, today's practice will be standing, so make sure you either have a yoga mat or you're able to stand on a floor where you're not going to slip around. And if you find that you prefer to keep your head above heart level, if you're not used to doing a forward bend, if you don't have a yoga practice of your own, you might like to have a chair like I've got behind me just to hand for that practice. So sorry, I was just looking at the time there, working out how much more I have to fill in before we start. So we've got about 20 seconds before we start. So really all I can say is welcome. I'm absolutely delighted to have you all here, and I'm looking forward to another 5 minutes of fast facts and 10 minutes of slow yoga. So let's start. So today, day 4, we're looking at the vagus nerve. Before we start on that, let's do a quick recap of what we've covered over the last 3 days. So we've learned that yoga is the settling of the mind into silence. Yoga is not just postures. We've learned that slow, mindful yoga improves our awareness of what we're doing, and that is critical to neuroplasticity, or the brain's ability to change its patterns of thoughts and behaviour. And we've learnt that yoga helps us to widen our window of tolerance, which enables us to function optimally whatever life throws at us. So today, the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the largest nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. So yesterday we talked about the autonomic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is one of the two branches of that. The vagus nerve connects virtually all the major organs in our body to the brain. And the name itself comes from the Latin for wanderer. So basically this nerve wanders around from organ to organ in the body, connecting them to the brainstem, gathering information and relaying it to the brain. So this means that it helps regulate many of the body's autonomic or unconscious functions, things like breathing, heart rate, digestion, and even how we respond to what we experience in life. And the vagus nerve's role in regulating all these body functions is absolutely key to enabling us to return over and over again to homeostasis, balance. And one of the ways it does that is by making sure that we feel safe, or by endeavouring to keep us feeling safe. So the various ways it keeps us safe tap into what we talked about yesterday. So the sympathetic nervous system mobilises the body to respond to stress through the fight and flight mechanism. The parasympathetic nervous system, which we're focusing on at the moment, stimulates the relax response, often known as rest or digest. And then there's more. So polyvagal theory, which has been around for 30 odd years, I think, suggests that the parasympathetic nervous system itself can be split into two branches. The ventral vagal branch is the social engagement part of the system. This is the branch that invokes that rest and digest activity as long as we're feeling safe enough to do so. It also stimulates pro-social as opposed to antisocial behaviour. And that aspect is often described as the tend and befriend system. And of course this can be a protective measure, since being kind is a great way to be integrated into one's tribe or family group, and that is essential for survival. The other branch of the parasympathetic nervous system, the dorsal vagal branch, has a backup plan, effectively, for when all these other survival strategies fail. And when activated, it causes our bodies to go into a freeze or flop response, effectively playing dead, which can be the ultimate survival strategy. So as I mentioned yesterday, a healthy system moves in and out of all of these states constantly in a fluid and easy manner. The problems start to arise if we get stuck. And when the vagus nerve is not functioning to its optimal capacity, it's known as having low vagal tone, just like muscle tone. And research has indicated that low vagal tone has a connection with poor self-regulation. Self-regulation is our ability to manage our emotions and our behaviour appropriate to the circumstances we're in. It's been connected to having less flexible behaviour generally, and also to conditions like depression and anxiety, to chronic pain, and to a number of other chronic conditions. So clearly what we want is to have optimal vagal tone. So how do we improve our vagal tone? We do it by breathing, specifically by slow, deep breathing. Slow breath sends signals to the brain which naturally calm the nervous system. Slow breath synchronizes the electrical activity of the heart and the lungs and the brain. It activates our parasympathetic nervous system, and all of this helps to improve homeostasis, our return to balance. And of course, slow yoga is all about the breath. So whatever form our practice takes, whether we're sitting silently, whether increasing our awareness through breathing practices, whether we're lying on the floor or practicing postures in a mindful way, our breath naturally starts to slow and lengthen. And research shows that yoga helps improve vagal tone and heart rate variability, the heart's ability to adjust its rate according to circumstances. And it may shift our system towards that parasympathetic ventral vagal dominance, where we are in the position to respond through rest and digest, tend and befriend, and be an optimal member of society and make the most of our own lives. So when our practice and our breath are slow, mindful and aware, we are optimizing the potential to shift into this state whenever it's appropriate. And slow yoga, in particular, allows us time to integrate these changes. The pause is as important as the pose. That's when the body can integrate all the things that we are opening up to. So, without more ado, let's do a little practice together. I'm going to move. I invite you to come to your feet. If you're sitting or lying down, do so nice and slowly and gently and easily so that you come up head last. Hold on, let me get my right screen in front of me. There we go. And just take a few moments to find your feet. I'm afraid you can't see my feet when I have to use this camera, but you can see hopefully that my legs are about hip distance apart. And I'm softening my knees slightly. So notice whether your knees have pressed right back. If they are, if there's no room for your knees to go further back, then just release them a little, and maybe you feel a little drop in the tailbone, a little lift in the breastbone. Perhaps the shoulders let go a little. Can you feel the whole of your feet connecting into the ground? The big toe side of the ball of the foot, the little toe side, from the tips of the pads of the toes back to the heel. And are you breathing? Let your breath come and go easily and gently. And next time you start to inhale, very gently allow your arms to start to float out to the sides, opening out. Let the shoulders relax as you get to shoulder level so they don't hunch up with you. Can you drop your shoulders? Let the arms float on up above your head, or if that's uncomfortable on your shoulders, then you can absolutely do this by coming forward instead. And then pause with the arms out and up. Feel into your feet, the balls of the feet, the heels. Can you imagine lifting out of your ankle, lift up through the front of your body? You might even want to look to raise your eyes up towards the ceiling. Be careful not to tip your head back. You want to keep your head supported by your spine so there's no strain. But maybe you feel an opening up the front of the body, an opening in the front of the chest. Release the shoulders. Breathe. And then let the hands come together. Come down the centre line of the body. Turn. Let's do that again. Opening out, down through the feet. Can you perhaps feel, if you go down away into your feet, that helps the arms to open out a little bit more? Relax the shoulders as the arms come up or forward, depending on where you're moving them to. And then again, pause with the fingers pointing up towards the ceiling. Can you stretch the tips of your fingers as if you were just trying to reach the nails up towards the ceiling, and then relax the upper arm? That may sound really strange. Just let it go. Let the words go and see if your body responds. Stretch your fingers, relax your shoulders. Breathe. Lift up a little bit more through the breastbone. And then bring the hands together. Come back down the centre line. And then once more, down through the feet, letting the arms open, let the shoulders relax and soften, let the breath come in and go out whenever it needs to, opening up, extending towards the ceiling and coming back down. You bring your hands down to prayer position. Just pause for a moment and check inside and notice what you feel in your body. And perhaps for some of you, there may be an awareness, however slight, of a shift in energy, a slight uplift in your energy compared to when you first stood up after sitting or lying and listening to me. If you're not feeling that, that's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. You might want to try this again in your own time and just see whether you notice that even such a simple movement can lift the energy and shift us a little bit. And as I mentioned yesterday, there are a whole load of different yoga poses that can help us to lift our energy when we need it, moving us back into that window of tolerance, getting everything functioning optimally. And then there are poses that help us to drop our energy in the most positive, comfortable way. So we're now going to do one of those. So again, if you're a yoga regular practitioner, if you're used to doing a forward bend, by all means do this as a full forward bend. I'm going to use the chair so that it makes it accessible to anybody who is not so used to making that kind of movement. So if you're using a chair or a piece of furniture, start by standing reasonably close to it. If you're not using one, then obviously you're just standing on your mat. Feet hip distance apart again, drop into your feet. Soften your knees a bit this time. We want to avoid any potential for pushing back, bracing back into the knees when we come into a forward bend. That's really important so that you don't strain anything. So let the knees be soft. Let your arms float up again, soften the shoulders. And then can you feel down into your feet, dropping into the feet, lifting out of the ankles, allowing the whole spine to come forward in one piece. Keep the sense of your belly resting back into your spine so that you don't let your lumbar spine flop. If at any point this feels like a strain, you can bring your hands back onto your thighs and use that as a bit of extra support for your spine as you come forward. And if you're using the chair, let your arms come to rest. I find the outsides of my wrists is the easiest place to rest on the back of the chair. And then take little steps away and you stretch and open your back until your hips are over your heels. And you can rest there. If you're coming all the way down to a full forward bend, then of course carry on down until your hands are on the floor and find a comfortable way of resting into that position. And if you are using the chair, can you allow your tailbone to just extend a little behind you and your head to extend a little forward so that you feel this lovely stretch in the back? You might want to adjust your feet a little more. If you're coming down into a full forward bend, then you can lift your sacrum up towards the ceiling a little bit more. And simply breathe in this position. If you're using the chair and it feels comfortable and you're happy to take your head lower, you may want to bring your arms down onto the seat of the chair. Just see which works best for you. If that's comfortable, you can bend your knees as much as you like, but keep that sense of the back extending. But whichever position you're using, rest into it. Release. Breathe. Let the breath come into the back of your body. And then when you're ready to come up, feel into the feet. Can you feel the balls of your feet, the heels? If you're using a chair, walk in a little so you come closer to the chair itself. And then whichever position you're coming up from, with the knees softened and slightly bent, go down into the balls of the feet, down into the heels, so that you can bring your whole spine up in one piece. You can use your hands on your thighs if it's helpful. Whole spine comes up in one piece. And then the head comes up last, so you're effectively stacking everything, coming up, ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, and then the head just rests on top of the spine like a tennis ball on an empty loo roll tube. And see how you're feeling now. See what's happening in your body. There may be a sense of energy moving again. And perhaps at the same time a bit of a sense, whether you've got it now or whether you had it when you were resting into that position, of a gentle settling of the energy, a gentle dropping. And you may not feel any of that, and that's absolutely fine. It's not a problem. It's not even about what you feel. It's about opening up to the possibility of feeling something. So, as I always say, it's not about the answer to the question, it's about asking the question. So just check in. Ask how your body feels. Notice and answer if one comes, and if not, that's fine too. So that's our 10 minutes of practice for today. Come back tomorrow for the last of these 5 mini sessions. And tomorrow we're going to be looking at why I'm always talking in my classes, my workshops, about listening to your body, what I mean, and how yoga helps us do it. It's what brings all of this together, in my personal opinion. And don't miss my special offer tomorrow for everybody who's watched any of these classes. If you'd like to explore a bit more about this approach to yoga and do more than 10 minutes practice with me, completely free, then come back on Friday, come back tomorrow for that last session to find out how you can do that. Thank you again for joining me. It's been a pleasure, and I will see you tomorrow.